Didn't know we started, sorry. Right, I'm going to start again. Hi, good morning. So last week during half term, we started a really important key time in the Christian church, and that was the season of Lent. So some of you may not even realise this, but last week we had Pancake Day, also known as Shrove Tuesday, and then following on from that was what's called Ash Wednesday. And both of those days signal the start of Lent. Now Lent is a 40-day period, and it leads us up to the most important festival in the Christian church, which is Easter. Okay, and we will talk more about that over the coming weeks as we lead up to Easter. I'm here this morning just to let you know a little bit about Lent before I hand over to Josh, who's going to talk about this week's theme, which is temptation. So Lent, what is it? Well, it's 40 days, and it represents the time that Jesus spent in the desert. He was tempted by the devil, he didn't eat anything, he fasted whilst he was there, and he had some time in prayer to try and deepen his relationship with God. And so for us, Lent is similar, and I'm going to mention 3 things for you. So the first one is to pray. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, but I don't really know how to pray, I don't pray, it's not really for me. But maybe during this season of Lent, it's an opportunity for you to develop a relationship with God, or start thinking about it. For me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the medium of art in order to learn more about the Bible. And so I'm going to do some journaling where I'm going to do some artwork in my Bible to try and learn about it more and to deepen my relationship with God. And then the second thing during Lent is to fast. Now, you see me eating a sneaky chocolate bar a minute ago, so as you can tell, I haven't given up chocolate for Lent. And you may not have given up anything either. But if I'm honest, this year we've all given up a lot, particularly during this third lockdown. But maybe it's a really good opportunity to look at what we haven't got at the minute and what we are fasting from, and maybe how that's having a positive impact on our lives. Okay, I know for me, there's certain things that I'm not doing now, but actually they're positive because I'm spending more time as a family, and that's a great thing. If you do give something up, great. It's going to really challenge your discipline and your willpower. If you're not giving anything up, maybe just think about those things that we can live without and how that can have a positive impact on us. And then the third thing, during Lent, it is really important to think of others. And it's a great opportunity to give. Whether that is to give money, to give resources, or to just give of your time to help and support other people. And we've actually got Red Nose Day during Lent, which is great because we're going to ask you to get involved, and that'll be a really good opportunity for you to show your commitment to the community and your commitment to other people during Lent. And like I said, it's 40 days, so we've got a great opportunity of time to do those 3 things. And for you, as an individual, to learn more about yourselves and to maybe change for the positive and become a better person, a better Christian who lives a better life, so that when we get to Easter and we have obviously Jesus' death on Good Friday, where we reflect on our sins and ask him for forgiveness and handing them over to God, and then the wonderful celebration of Easter where we learn that God died for our sins so that we can conquer over evil. And that's what it's all about. Easter is about good overcoming evil. And so over this Lenten period, we're going to have loads of time to think about all of those things. But anyway, I'll hand over to Josh now to talk to us a little bit about
temptation. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if you've never even thought about fighting temptation in your whole life, because our world doesn't really care about it anymore. See, we used to live in a world where Disney characters would sing, "When you get in trouble and you don't know right from wrong, when you meet temptation and the urge is very strong, take the straight and narrow path, and if you start to slide, always let your conscience be your guide." But now we live in a world where Disney characters sing, "No right, no wrong, no rules for me, I'm free, let it go." Does anyone else think that's messed up? In a world that tells us to follow our hearts and to follow our desires, we can often be tricked into forgetting that our hearts can sometimes be pretty evil. Our desires can sometimes not be good for us. If we follow what our heart wants all of the time, then we're going to get ourselves in quite a lot of trouble. You see, we read in the Bible the reality that there is right, there is wrong. There's a way that leads to life, but there's also a way that leads to destruction. Now, there's a really good song by a guy called Jimmy Needham, and his song is called Sirens, and it's actually featured in the Hope magazine this week, if you want to have a look. Now, Jimmy uses the mythical creatures of sirens as an illustration for what temptation's like. Now, in the myth, sirens were the most beautiful creatures with sweet, sweet singing voices. And they would lure in sailors as they went by in their ships. Sailors would be totally captivated by the songs of the sirens that they would hear. And they would be overwhelmed with an urge to go towards them. And as they took their boats over to them, they'd crash into the rocks and the sirens would destroy them. That is what temptation is like. It sounds so good and it looks so amazing and we're drawn in. But it ends in destruction. It ends in ruin. And eventually, it totally destroys us. Now, there was a sailor in the myth. His name was Ulysses. And he knew all about the tempting song of the sirens. And he came up with a plan. He got his crew of his ship to tie him to the mast of the boat. So as they sailed by, he wouldn't be able to go to the sirens. So Ulysses was sailing past the island of the sirens, and the beautiful singing could be heard. The beautiful notes were sailing across the waves towards the ship. And Ulysses could hear this beautiful music, and he was drawn with all his heart. He so wanted to go and see them, but he was tied to the mast and he wasn't going anywhere. But his heart was overwhelmed by an urge to go over towards the sirens. It was agony. If he'd have listened to Elsa and followed his heart, he'd be dead. Because he was tied to the mast, he won the battle, but he wasn't happy. He wasn't free. Now, I don't know what kind of things tempt you the most in your life. Whether it's watching stuff online in your room when you're alone. Whether it's eating way too much. Might even be gambling. Or if you get older, stuff like alcohol. Maybe at the moment it's watching one more episode before you start to do your team's work. I see you. But often our tactic for fighting against temptation, when we do fight against temptation, is to just grit our teeth and try our best to endure it. We try and muster up enough willpower to not do the thing that we know we shouldn't do, even though the desire to do it is the only thing that fills our minds and it's killing us to do it. But there's a better way. Rather than being like Ulysses and just tying ourselves to the mast even though we want to go over there, there's a better thing we can do. Here's a verse, 2 Timothy 2, verse 22. Oh, 2s. This is an older Christian called Paul, writing to a younger Christian called Timothy. And Paul says this: flee youthful lusts, run away from evil desires. But instead of that, pursue righteousness, faith, love, and peace with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. So what Paul is saying there is, don't just put all your effort towards running away from the temptation, but put your effort towards running towards something better. He's saying replace that evil desire that you have with a desire that is good, a desire that is so much better and sweeter than this temptation. Now, Ulysses, he wasn't the only sailor to sail past the Sirens' island. There was another guy. His name was Jason. And instead of just trying to resist his urges, he introduced a better song. He hired an amazing musician called Orpheus to play his sweetest, most beautiful piece as the ship was sailing past the Sirens. And so the siren song came over Jason's ship, and yet it was completely drowned out by the sweeter, better song.
There once was a ship that put to sea.
That right there is the greatest way that we can overcome temptation, by being satisfied in something better. See, Orpheus' music was so sweet to Jason that he didn't care about the siren song, no matter how enticing it might be. He'd found something better. And so Jimmy Needham in that song sings, "Silence the sirens. I hear them, they're singing. I feel it pulling me under. Silence the sirens. Rid their throats of poison notes and sing a better song for me." And you know, the sweetest of all songs, the greatest of all joys, the most satisfying thing that there is knowing Jesus. I feel like I say this every week, but it's true. See, listen, God created you, and God created me, not to find satisfaction in temptation, in wrong, in sin, the Bible calls it, but instead to find true happiness in Him. That's what was in the mind of Jesus when he was in the desert being tempted by the devil. The devil could bring all the most enticing things the world could give, but Jesus knew that only with his Father was true peace, was true joy and true happiness. And so whatever temptations you face in your life, whatever they may be, the best thing I can ever present to you is Jesus Christ, the one who gave his life for sinners like me, like you, so that the judgment we face for giving in to those tempting things and sinning is completely taken away. He takes it on himself as he died on the cross. He gives us complete forgiveness and everlasting life when we trust in him. So, who are you going to listen to? Elsa or Jiminy Cricket? Who are you going to be like? Ulysses or Jason? When you face temptation, don't just run from, but run to. Don't just try and get away from sin as hard as you can, but instead run to Jesus, the best song to drown out any temptation.